everybody, it's Colin Stevenson here once again with my hero John Lenhart. Hi John.
Hi.
Now we have been talking about videos now for a while and different intangible drivers for people, and you have your why and you have your how. So the only how that we've done so far is server how, and this can change in between all 7 of the intangible drivers. Today is our first one that we're going to do. That will be the first single intangible driver how, and that is perceiver how. John, would you like to tell us about this? Because this will open so many doors to people for them to be understood, but also for people to understand that people are not cheeky and that people are not always saying something to offend somebody.
Exactly. Great intro. So the why is the effect we want to have on other people. The how is what we do. So when you see people, the first thing you see is their how. That's the very first thing you see. And then why they do it is behind that. So we did all the whys. Now this perceiver how is, a perceiver just wants to make you aware. They're a reality junkie. And how they do it is they make a statement.
Yeah.
That is all they do. He's not paying attention. That car is yellow. That's all they're doing. But what happens, just like you said, is it can come off as them being negative, pessimistic, pointing out a problem.
Yeah.
But again, the first step of fixing anything is to be aware of it. So to think of these perceivers how is they are trying to make you aware of something because it's a good thing to be aware.
Yeah.
But the problem is that our first step usually is to feel bad. So here's how you make a perceiver how angry. You don't recognize or be aware of what they're pointing out. So we've said this before. The easiest people to start a fight with is perceivers. Perceiver how. The easiest people to get along with is perceiver how. So when someone says, and we talked about this in the classroom, the student says to the teacher, that kid isn't paying attention. If the teacher says anything other than I see that, this kid doesn't feel heard, he doesn't feel connected, and he is going to go off. So this is how we help people feel connected. This is how we help people feel safe. So online, when people are making their one-line comments, it's really simple to just say, I see that, and then ask them a question. If you ask them a question before you say, I see that, they are going to start a fight. So don't assume that people are making a statement or trying to start a fight.
I like that. Now, we just did a video, today's Thursday, it would have been Monday. The video that we put out on Monday was about the people and healthy interactions, okay? Now, we always explain that a healthy interaction doesn't come from a statement, but with a perceiver, it cannot be any other way. And this is why people can take offense or people believe that they're being overbearing or these type of things. And they're not recognizing it as, when we talk about unconscious confrontations and questions, they're not recognizing them as a perceiver. They're looking at it as an attack. Would you not agree with?
Oh, absolutely. So the key with these intangible drivers is there's 2 big steps we're hoping people take. The first step is we hope everybody gets kind of a big picture understanding of their uniqueness. The second step is to help others learn how to talk to you. So if you're a perceiver how, and you understand that you're just making these statements, the thing you want to help other people understand is, look, I'm not looking for you to, disagree. I'm not looking for you to fix anything. All I'm looking for is you to say, you see what I see, because I can't help seeing it. So what I do, and last week we actually talked about this, because the guy that I had the last interaction with was a perceiver how. He was making a bunch of statements. And what I did was, and I do this all the time, when people make all these statements, I want to give them the benefit of the doubt. I'm being a samurai. My backward step is, what if they're a perceiver and they're trying to help me?
Yeah.
So that's why I asked the question. I asked the question, really, why are you pointing this out? I see that, or I see why you believe that. What do you mean by this? I'm trying to understand you. And I'm giving them the chance to go, oh, I'm just trying to help the world. Yay. They just do it, but this one statement. So I do that. And then that interaction, that third interaction from last week's video, where most people would go, this guy's trying to pick a fight. He goes, I felt understood.
Yeah.
And we got along. He's a perceiver how. So that was the trick in that video, is that I recognized this guy was perceiver how. The minute he answered my first question or gave an answer, I went, he's a good guy. And I'm like, he might be perceiver how.
Yeah. And perceivers are, again, very easy to pick a fight with as well, because sometimes when people are running, when we talk about the flow up to 80, and then we're talking about 160, 320, if people are running at 160 and 320, they're not recognizing a perceiver. They're recognizing the straw that broke the camel's back that caused them to kind of go mad. And this is where, if they allow themselves to be in flow, which we're going to talk about in future videos, they will be able to see the perceiver how in somebody before it gets to that point.
Right. So people will say, well, is this really a benefit? I think the first step in fixing anything is to be aware, but I will tell you this. We celebrate perceiver hows all the time.
Yeah.
Because perceiver hows are poets and lyricists. So here's the reality. Every poet and every lyric writer is a perceiver how.
Yes.
And the example I give with this is again, I'm older, so one of my favorite songs, back when I was a young person, was Fast Cars by Tracy Chapman, Fast Cars.
One of my favorites as well.
Okay. I love to read people the lyrics to that song. And so the issue is I help people become poets by saying, write what you want to write and then cut off the why, cut off the reason. Because we talk in a what and then a why or how. Cut it off. Just say what's. So you read those lyrics and it's all what's.
Yeah.
Everything in that lyric is a what. So where's the meaning? The meaning's between. It's like poetry. Poetry's like that. Poetry's just what's. And the meaning and the feeling and everything is in the words what words they chose and what they said, but it's not there, but it's there. And eventually you and I are going to talk about art, and truth. But So the thing is every time you like a song, look at the lyrics very carefully. They're what's, and it's causing you to bring your feelings, your emotions into it, and you have to fill everything in. So we celebrate these people, except when they're on LinkedIn talking to us and there's no music behind them. And if you can't hear the music behind them, so that's why if you were to follow me talking to people, whenever I say to someone poetic, I'm saying to them, you just perceiver how it be. You said all this stuff. So what I want to do is I want to go through all 7 basically perceiver hows to show you what they look like with the why. Because remember, people are throwing out a what, but why they're doing it is different based on who they are.
Yeah.
So perceiver. So the thing is that, first of all, we said perceiver whys are comedians.
Yeah.
So Steve Martin, Ricky Gervais, these people who are perceivers, these are comedians, and they are reality junkies. They can handle the hardest stuff you bring at them. They're not going to feel any of the emotion. Ricky Gervais is out there blatantly saying, look I don't care what you guys say. I don't care. I'm perceiver. I'm stating a fact. Why? To state a fact. That's all I'm doing. Okay. Now I have a very famous story, that we always tell around among us, is that I was working with a student who was Exhorter perceiver, and we're going to talk about them at the end. And I'd worked with him. And then Jonathan and I had gone to this high school a year or two later, and that student was walking down the hall. And so I looked at Jonathan and I go, I know him. So he looked up and I went, hi. And he looked at me and he just looked at me like, nope. And I'm like, Exhorter perceiver, you should have been excited. And he says to me, he goes, you don't know me. You know my brother. We are the same age. We are twins. He's perceiver. Okay. I mean, he's perceiver to the max, but he said it like I had to write it down because he said it so quick. I'm like, that can sound like there's a Y, and there was no Y's. There was 4 period marks. If you state what's fast enough, they can turn into Y's. Yeah. But he wasn't doing that. This guy, he had a identical twin brother, but he's perceiver, and his twin brother is exhorter perceiver. And he just, bam, 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 bam. And it was just like, he could have said, you know, me, administrative teacher, I'd have said, oh, you know my twin. I'm so-and-so, you know my twin. That's all the why and everything in there. Nope. You don't know me. You know my brother. We're the same age. We're twins. No kidding. You know, that's what perceiver looks like. And there was no way I could ever make this guy feel bad. He's just completely fact-based.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Now, just while we're on the subject of perceiver, remember when we spoke on the last perceiver video and we spoke about people being misdiagnosed with autism, right? Because that touched some nerves, I'm pretty sure, with people watching, because they might be able to understand their children better. Now, if you've got people that have no emotion, and I don't mean they don't have emotion, they definitely do, and their unconscious emotion as well, but if they are the speech period type, and they don't have the emotion, people will not, and they won't think that they have that, you know, that understanding of them. And again, it can be even more difficult to be a perceiver than a perceiver on each side.
Right. So the difference is if they're truly autistic, they're not going to engage with you. So that's the emotional component you're talking about. They're not going to look at you. They're not going to engage you. Part of the reason they don't look at you is there's so much information coming from our face, and they are really in tune with their unconscious that they can't handle that. So that's why they won't look, you know, at your eyes. But they're still perceiver how. So what you can say is, I see that, and you'll get along with them.
Yeah.
But if they've been diagnosed as autistic and they're not, and you start saying, I see that, and they suddenly start looking at you and they start smiling, what's your reason for that?
Yeah.
I'm not going to say that I just cured someone of autism. I'm going to say they're misdiagnosed, and they're surrounded by people who don't say, I see that.
Yes. And again,
and that's a really big issue, because what happens is, you know, is we have the story of this guy who was a really powerful guy, and he says to my wife and I, you know, at the time he had an 11-year-old daughter, and he said, I fight with her all the time, and he's compassion servant. He's like you. And we said, what happens? And he goes, well, she'll point out, you know, that's a yellow Volkswagen Bug. And we go, what do you say? He goes, well, I explained to her, da 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 da. And we're like, so what does she do? She gets mad. We go, I think she's a perceiver how. And if you don't say, I see that, everything you want to say is causing the fight. Say what you want to say after you say, I see that, then say what you want to say. Every time we saw this guy afterwards, he never failed to mention, my relationship with my daughter is absolutely taken off. It's one sentence. Perceiver hows. All you have to do is say, I see that, then say whatever you want. If you don't say, I see that, then when they get ramped up, it's your fault.
Yes, absolutely. And again, this goes into the whole misdiagnosis. And, you know, when people don't understand somebody, even when they ask the question, they're not saying, I see that first. They'll say, what do you mean? And there's still a disconnection there because they haven't said it.
Right. So we talked about teacher perceiver during the Teacher Why video, you know, Dwight Schrute, Ron Swanson, Sherlock Holmes, these people, and we're probably going to do a whole video just on this on another time, because these are police detectives are like this too. These are very, very tough people to deal with. And I actually put a group together of people who's had dads who were basically, you know, teacher perceiver, and it is just a lot of damage, and you just feel like you're never right, and you never know what you're doing. So we'll talk about that another time. So compassion perceiver, and we talked about a little bit about this with the compassion why, is these are your songwriters. These are your very emotional and distraught poets. So these poets that feel all this energy and they feel really down and everything, these are your compassion perceivers. We said Dave Chappelle was that,
Yeah.
you know, and he had to go about being a comedian backwards. We said John Mayer was perceiver compassion. He had to go about doing his thing backwards. So it's not that you can't do that. It's not like you have to be a perceiver how to be a lyricist. It's just that it's naturally works that way. I'm a big fan of Jackson Browne. Jackson Browne is compassion perceiver. Yeah. So what happens is now, and here's the key point to this. When Jackson Browne writes a lyric and he says, you know, he'll just say, you know, I'm running down the road, you know, trying to loosen my load. It's like, what he means is why? Why are you trying to loosen your load? So this guy's under, he's under some sort of strain. And what's the compassion? And he feels overwhelmed. He didn't say that. It's in there, but he didn't say that. So here's the big issue with perceiver Howes, is he said a what, he meant the reason why, he meant his feeling, he never specifically said it.
Yes.
And if you were to say to him, oh, you're feeling overwhelmed, he'd go, that's what I said. He didn't say it. So perceiver Howes are the people that other people say about them, you know, I need to start carrying a tape recorder because you think you said this and you didn't. And I'm going to play it for you. And so perceiver Howes, I tell them to use the word meant. I say to them, if you're a perceiver Howe, say to people, that's what I meant.
Yeah.
Because you did not say, that's what I said. You did not factually say it, and it's going to wreck yourself. That's how these perceiver Howes ruin themselves. We did a video earlier in the week about your unconscious. When you say, that's what I said, and then you didn't say it, your unconscious starts going, no, you didn't. Yeah. And now you're feeling pain. That's what I meant. And so that's a big thing. So this is where the poetry comes in. He says, Tracy Chapman says one line, and she means a why and a feeling.
Yeah.
And you know, fast car she is compassion perceiver.
Absolutely. And just while you're talking about Tracy Chapman, and while I was sitting listening to the Tracy Chapman album the other night, because I genuinely think she's fabulous, right? She's genuinely fabulous. And it was a fast car album, and I'm sitting listening, but her songs are so powerful. And I believe her to be one of the most underrated singers, writers for centuries. Like literally, I genuinely believe that she puts, I feel it because I'm compassionate. So I know exactly what she's trying to say while she's saying it, but she can do it in statements so that it becomes shorter, so that the message comes across. It's absolutely amazing. And I know that you can get all sorts of different perceivers, you know, teacher, administrator, server, but compassion perceiver, I believe it's just a flood of emotion that comes through your body while you're listening to it, and it takes your brain to a whole different place because you're creating this story. If you close your eyes, you can physically see where they are. You know, it's unbelievable.
And you just said it, because you're compassion. Yes. So if people feel that way about Tracy Chapman's music, they are compassion. I love Jackson Browne's music. It makes me feel that way. I love Tracy Chapman's music. It makes me feel that way. But you notice they're backwards. Compassion is backwards. Perceiver's backwards. These poets that write backwards, these poets that write, the pain, compassion perceiver. Okay. So now we go to giver perceiver. And so first of all, I had an experience last week where somebody, you know, a very young person, I'm going to say 21, took our test, the Intangible Driver Test, and came out giver perceiver. So this perceiver Howe. Okay. And the reason they took the test is someone else wanted them to take the test because they're always getting in fights, arguments. And so when it came out, I was like, oh my goodness, because we did the giver why video. So think about this. Perceiver Howe needs you to say, I see that, immediately after they say anything. Giver why needs you to say, okay, or something not negative. So giver perceiver when they're trying to make something better by making you aware, if your first sentence isn't, I see that, or something like literally, I see that is not negative. If your sentence isn't, I see that, you've just made the worst enemy of your life. Because the giver and the perceiver are now completely focused on just tearing you apart. And all of a sudden, you know, for her to realize about herself, embrace that, and help other people realize that so she can fix her context is life-changing, okay? But when it comes to poets and lyricists, another one of my favorites, so I'm like giving you my favorite for each one of these. So a very famous giver perceiver is Neil Young.
Yep.
So Neil Young is giver perceiver. So he is like, if you look at his music, it's not really, you know, backwards, past, negative, and it's not really exhorter, holy cow. It's, I'm giving you something. I'm a nice guy. I'm a chill guy. And I'm not an emotional guy. Giver's not emotional. And it's just, it's right there in the middle. It's very unique. There are very few giver perceiver lyricists. And that's why he kind of stands out that way.
Yeah, and can we just go back just for 1 second there, talking about the giver perceiver? That was crazy. So I see that, and then you know the next comment after that has to be a positive one again, because even if you say I see that, but their giver's going to come in and it's going to come back and get you as well. So you have to have I see that and, or I see that plus, I see that, you know, so it's adding to it. Yeah, no, I get that. And with Neil Young, I'm not mad, like, understanding a lot of his music, but I've heard a few songs, and I would say that's more kind of present, and not so much just in the present, but it's giving a present at the same time. So it's, again, it's very, very cleverly put. So you can give someone a present of being present type thing, if you understand what I mean.
Right. So two things in there. One is I teach people, so this is going to be a bonus we didn't even intend to teach, is I teach people to say yes and instead of yes but.
Yeah.
You still can disagree, but the and isn't a shove. Yes, and I do it this way. And they're open. So I love, you just do an extra in there. Yes and instead of yes but. You can say the same thing, okay? Jimmy Fallon does his impersonation of Neil Young. And every Neil Young song, his point is every Neil Young song's the same. And if you do a Neil Young song, it is just what you just said. I am in the present telling you a series of things I see. Mm-hmm. You know, there's a person over there, there's a thing down there, there's a thing over there, and I'm going over there.
Yeah.
It's like, that's just what the songs are. It's just, I'm in the moment telling you everything I see.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely amazing.
Really unique. Yeah. So server perceiver,
yeah,
we talked about these server Ys.
Yeah.
Server perceiver is like an EMT, like an emergency medical technician. Like a server, when I talk about server perceiver, these are people who love a crisis. They will probably create a crisis because in that moment when something bad happens, they see all the options and they start barking orders. Do that, go there, be there. That, it's like, and so when someone comes up as server perceiver, I'm like, how are they during a crisis? And they're like, uh-oh, I like a crisis because then I'm fully myself. I'm barking orders and I'm just pointing things out and everybody better just get their act together, okay? Administrator perceiver is basically, this is the general pattern. We talked about this when we talked about administrators. Administrator perceiver is they coordinate everybody by barking out orders. I live in Wisconsin. Our quarterback on our team, Aaron Rodgers, is administrator perceiver. He organizes, and quarterbacks tend to be administrators. He organizes 10 other guys by barking out orders. And so what administrator perceivers tend to do is they tend to get upset at people who aren't excellent. Because if you think about it, what administrator perceiver has to do is they have to move a bunch of people around by just making a statement. And if people go, wait, what do you need to know why? You need to know what I'm feeling. Because think about it, that administrator perceiver, when they bark out a what, they mean this reason why, they mean this feeling, they mean how this is going to be better, they mean how this is going to sort out a need. but they said one sentence. And if you stop to ask any of the questions in between, they're mad and they go off. And Aaron Rodgers, got all these new receivers and he just is not happy. And the thing is if Aaron Rodgers doesn't learn that he's administrative perceiver when he retires, he is not going to end up being a very happy person, because what happens is administrative perceivers demand excellence or get them out of here. And if they don't learn how to develop people, they don't learn that in between, they look like leaders. Patton looks like a leader, but Patton drilled those people so he just could bark an order and everybody knew. And the thing is administrative perceiver end up burning out all their relationships and they end up alone. And then when an administrator's alone, it doesn't end well for them.
I love what you're talking about there, as well as, talking about football, but you talk about the army, you talk about the police force, you talk about all these things, okay, administrative perceivers, when they're all coming in, and they're the ones backing the orders. Now, I just wanted to bring up a point because this is the only model for the mind brain in the entire world that deserves a Nobel Prize. And I would give you one myself if I could, but I don't have that capability, unfortunately. Now, when we look at the police force, we look at the army, and we look at these different institutions, I'll call them, okay? We see people going up. Now, people don't know why these people make these positions. They don't know why. It's a collective of these people like that. Putting me in charge of like an army barracks or whatever, that's not going to bode well for the army to be able to go out and do things, because I want to take care of everybody and serve them. And it's okay, yeah, you take today off, and it's okay that we're going to get bombed tomorrow because you've got to go and see your family. And they couldn't put me in that position. However, what we've noticed is a trend. So what you talk about, we've spoken about you being able to put things into words. These people are following trends, behaviors, or whatever you want to call it, but you're the only person in the world that can put why they're doing it into speech. And I find it absolutely incredible, the fact that no one kind of recognises this. Imagine putting me in the Houses of Parliament in the UK. Could you imagine? Could you imagine? No, because you've got to have a certain uniqueness to be able to do these type of things, and that's why they all stick together.
My favorite example, so this is on a rabbit trail here, but this is my favorite example to talk about is quarterbacks in the American Football League, in the National Football League. A quarterback cannot be a server how. Aaron Rodgers is a perceiver how. Tom Brady is a perceiver how. Tom Brady's a perceiver how. He's the next category, exhorter perceiver. What happens is the quarterback needs to hold their thought process, not sink into anybody else, and everybody needs to sink into them. When a quarterback is a server how, he sinks into the other people. And what happens is now all of a sudden he goes up or down. And this happened. It's so funny because they spend millions of dollars, having these quarterbacks.
Yeah.
And then they go, it's so hit and miss. I can tell you immediately, no quarterback that's ever won the Super Bowl is a guy you want to hang out with. No quarterback who ever won the Super Bowl is a guy who is a server how. Because in order to win that big game, when you are massively stressed, you cannot sink into your circumstances. And the Packers, there's a classic example. When Aaron Rodgers got hurt a couple of years ago, they brought in this quarterback, Brent Hundley, who was server.
Yep. Superman.
He sinks into everybody. And the crowd didn't want him. They wanted Aaron Rodgers, and the crowd's at 160. So where's the quarterback going to be? 160. He can't even throw the ball. We've seen him throw the ball in college. We've seen him throw the ball, when everybody's behind him.
Yeah.
Okay, but now the crowd's not behind him. All of a sudden, there was this game against Tampa Bay. The Packers blocked a punt. The crowd got excited and went to 80. He went boom, boom, boom. Looked like a totally different quarterback. They got the ball back. Boom, boom, boom. Touchdown. They went in at halftime. Crowd went back to like 160, distracted. He came out. He sunk into them at 160, threw the ball away, threw an interception, whatever. The crowd went to 320. He played terrible the rest of the game. Packers barely won the game. Barely won the game. His stats were horrible except for 2 drives. You look at this data and go, there was 2 drives when he looked like Aaron Rodgers because the crowd was at 80. Every other drive, he looked like he couldn't throw the ball because the crowd was at 163-20. But go ahead, NFL, keep spending all that money on quarterbacks. Keep trying to say it's all physical. It's not mental at all. Keep doing that. Awesome. You're doing great out there. So the last category is exhorter perceiver.
Yeah.
And exhorter perceiver is really interesting because if you think about it, when these people write a lyric, they mean everything. Everything. My favorite artist is Van Morrison. He is exhorter perceiver. Okay. Every major female artist, if you go decade by decade, every major one was exhorter perceiver. Okay. If you go all the way back to Joni Mitchell, you know, Alanis Morissette, Sheryl Crow, Taylor Swift. They're all exhorter perceiver. You know, Taylor Swift writes a lyric and it means this is the why, this is what I'm feeling, this is how to make it better, this serves a need, this is how to coordinate a group of people, this is how to get jacked up. They'll take one lyric and they'll do a whole video on it because it means a million different things. These people feel the greatest amount. The guy that I had the argument with that I got on his side, he's exhorter perceiver. Everything he was saying there, and here's, you know, was exhorter perceiver. He was perceiving in order to help me feel what he's feeling. So here's the problem with exhorter perceivers. They are very susceptible to becoming bipolar. And it's everything we talked about earlier in this week about your unconscious. Because on the one hand, they're stating a fact. Why are they stating a fact? Because they want you to feel what they're feeling. What happens with exhorter? Why if you don't feel what they're feeling? They alter the fact. But they're perceiver how? So, and now what happens is, you know, these exhorter perceivers can look very bipolar because they're stating a fact to get you to feel this. And if you don't feel what they're feeling, they're going to change the fact. But now their unconscious is going to knock them down for stating a wrong fact. Now they're going to ramp up more in their exhorter and conscious and try to override it. And their unconscious is going to wreck them more. And now they're changing their body chemistry. And now the effect of this thought process is their body chemistry is out of whack in a bipolar fashion. I've helped 2 people, you know, get off bipolar meds because it's not a chemical imbalance. It's their thought process creating a chemical imbalance.
Yes.
So you see, when I see these exhorter perceivers, I'm like, these people are going to be amazing artists. But if they don't learn this about themselves, they're going to end up a disaster, just an absolute disaster.
So just as you're talking on that there, obviously we've said perceiver can be kind of misinterpreted or misdiagnosed for autism, but obviously that means you can misdiagnose bipolar behavior as well then, because when people, and I speak to people daily, the clients, and it's, you know, it's the brain is so powerful that if we program it healthily, we can overcome just about anything unless it's physical damage. Okay, that yes, it might take longer for certain people, but we can come over anything just about with changing the program. And so if we can say that misdiagnosis of bipolar and autism, surely there must be lots of other misdiagnoses that have been put out there to make people feel that they're not well, and then they live by the program and they live by what they're meant to be, you know, according to the diagnosis.
Right. So all those diagnoses are coming from effect to cause. We see certain behavior, which is an effect, and then we see the brain is like this. So we go, the brain is a cause. There's this chemical imbalance. There's this. The problem is that's an effect of your uniqueness and the way you're wired your brain for happiness.
Yeah.
Instead, medical science just tries to fix the brain from here when they could dissolve it by fixing over here. And that's what you and I are really trying to do. We're trying to help people dissolve these issues by putting them here and looking through their brain to their behavior this way. Medical science is looking at the behavior back into the brain.
Yep, and I think we should do a video on the possible the list of misdiagnoses. I think that would be very, very popular and helpful to the people that are watching. But listen, thank you so much for today again. And I hope all perceivers or people that know perceivers are now starting to understand that these people are so much more awesome than what you actually first believed, because they're great, great people. And as John said, they're the easiest to get on with, but the easiest to start a fight with. And it's all down to your understanding or you choosing to understand. Okay.
Right. Remember, yeah. I just want to say the one thing. Remember, we said in the past, Gary Vee put out a post saying, are you negative? Are you pessimist? Turn your brain around consciously. And I put on a post saying, or are you perceiver how and perceiver why? And this is, you should go this way. He was doing a post, nope, you're a bad person, you're a negative person, you're a pessimist, you should figure that and deny your uniqueness. Yeah. When I put that all up, he took the whole post down. Didn't apologize for doing it, didn't recognize he did the wrong thing, didn't try to help all these people. He focused more on himself and said, oops, I was trying to hurt people, and I'm not going to help them. I'm just going to pretend like it never happened. So yeah, there's a lot of damage going on LinkedIn. People may not intend to, but they certainly don't try to fix it after they do it. Yeah, there's a lot of damage going on in a lot of places in the world, and John, you're the man. I am here to help you fix it, and we'll do it one person at a time. Absolutely. No, thank you so much for today, and I look forward to speaking to you again next week. Take care. Cheers, John.